What is going on, Space Mob? Welcome back to another episode of the AST Space Odyssey Podcast. Very glad to be back here. I know it's been a few weeks, but we're back, the studio set up, and we're ready to keep this podcast kicking here. There's been a lot that's happened. I feel like we're a whole new company than when we talked last after all these accomplishments. It's pretty insane what can just happen over a few weeks or months' time with a high growing company like this. Moral of the story, I hope this is what we're becoming now. We're the bull attacking the bear. Seems like we have had some bearish activity lately with all the shorts and such, and people trying to make narratives that might hurt the stock. But honestly, it feels good to be where we are right now. So I'm just going to go over. We're going to start out. I'm going to give you the reasons why I think AST is at the best position it's ever been since I've invested. I invested since this was a SPAC, NPA, like almost instantly because I saw the vision. And right now, after all this, after years of being questions about funding, being questions about does the tech work, the satellites, will we have enough to launch it? I think with a lot of this recent news, we can start putting a lot of this to rest, where it's I believe it's pretty de-risked at this point, and I think that's why we've seen the recent spike like 50% in this week. So I honestly just don't really know how people can doubt it, because first off, after the recent offering of convertible notes, we have a $1 billion war chest. So these launches aren't cheap. These satellites aren't cheap. So having just a big war chest here is really going to set us apart, and in terms of growth and being able to execute on the mission. Because if we went into this with not much money, or I don't know, $100-200 million, we'd end up falling short, and that's just not something we want to do, because we want all these satellites up so we can get continuous coverage and start making money here in the U.S. We finally have FCC approval here, and then with the best, that combined with the best partners, AT&T, Verizon, Vodafone, and Google as our MNO/partners, that's huge. And as we see, the tech works, 5G from space, and we have government contracts. So I don't really understand a bear case right now. Once we see the tech work, and once we compare it to other tech that's around, and you see AST doing video calls from outer space when other companies can barely send a text. So I think just all this confirms the tech, got enough money, and partnerships lined up. It's go time. So we're just going to go by a little piece by piece, just kind of into the recent news, since it's been a little since the update. And it's been pretty crazy. So it's kind of like in order. So we did that big offering, 460 million convertible notes, convertible in 2032. I think that shows a lot that these big institutions and big money are willing to lock up their money for a long time in the stock. And I think that just shows, without diving into the technicals of this offering, I think it just shows that the interest is there. It only took us a day to raise all this money. So just knowing that if we really are ever in a tight situation, there are investors out there with big money, big banks, big institutions that believe in ASTS. And of course, with an offering does come some dilution, especially because we're giving away shares. So not too surprising that the stock just took a big hit. I think whenever there's, in terms of offering, whether it's good or bad for the company, I think it's gotten to the point where Wall Street will just dump the stock based on just the headline, and maybe they have algos do it, but it seems like the second any offering news ever comes out, it's bam, which I do understand because it is dilution in the future. But it doesn't really matter for us ASTS holders, because we know the move is to hold the stock for a long time. So an offering caused by a 10-20% fall, I don't think it's something to worry about. If anything, it's just noise. So the offering happened, and then a week later, we had Elon Musk and Starlink saying they're secretly working with Apple. This just frustrated me because it's just like a whole marketing scheme here. It's not even like Apple released this. It's not even like Starlink released this news. It was like a Bloomberg leak of they're secretly working with Apple. As in secretly working with Apple is trying to get more customers from T-Mobile. So obviously they're going to allow all of T-Mobile services to happen on an iPhone. And that's the thing that doesn't really make sense why the stock fell because of that. And I'm not angry about it because I was able to buy more. But stuff like that is just pure noise. Like our competitors secretly working with Apple. That's the headline. You read into it, they're just saying, oh, they're going to do an iOS update that like supports the satellite connectivity with T-Mobile. So obviously an iPhone wants to work with all of its service providers. There's no point of an iPhone shutting out T-Mobile services or shutting out. So this isn't a surprise at all. This was no surprise to any of us who have like researched this stock and know the selling pressure. I don't know if it was just manipulation tactics so institutions could buy cheaper. It's hard to really know exactly what happened there. But it is very funny to watch. It's like, okay, we knew like T-Mobile is trying to work with Starlink. And now an iPhone's going to support that, obviously, because it's linked. There's no reason for them to say no. So I don't think there's any secret working. It's just we're Apple. We're like the biggest selling phone in the world. We're going to accommodate to our biggest service providers. That's how I saw it. The drop was pretty funny. And then, like, the same day it happens, Elon's like, he tweets, yeah, we should be able to send medium resolution images, texting, videos, and phones. And just the thing with this tweet is just that he said should. Like, I don't really understand why he's promoting his tech saying it should work. I don't know, that it just weirds me out. And as we've seen, he's been promising full self-driving and robotaxi since 2016, saying it's coming next year, full scale. And here we are, 2025, 9 years later, full self-driving. I don't know if any of you have tried it, but I tried it in Orlando, and it's definitely a little nerve-wracking and not where it needs to be. So you just see that he promises tech. It's coming soon, next year. It should do this, and it never really executes. And like one thing I was curious about during all this was just like, does this tech even work? Does Starlink, Elon saying, oh, it should send photos. Oh, you should be able to do this. I'm yet to see one proof of a cell phone being able to connect to like high-speed internet or even like the texting to send a photo. And I think the funny part about this PR, the secret Apple partnership or working with whatever they said, it's funny because the Vodafone news of us completing a high-speed internet FaceTime call or video call came out that same day. So, like, you can't help think snaky tactics are going on here. They knew we were testing. They knew we had the FCC approval with Vodafone in Europe. I don't know if they knew, like, to the day. If they did, that's pretty nuts, but I really wouldn't be surprised. But we released that news, like, on this day. The day that Starlink is secretly working with Apple, all of a sudden, we hit this giant milestone of a high-speed video call from outer space. First ever in Europe. Like, massive news. Has caused a windfall of PR, which is amazing to see. Just showing that the tech works. And I think that's the main thing that's kind of drawing the momentum behind the stock right now. Is that the PR campaign from Vodafone and just actual videos of this tech working has people drawn into it. Elon Musk saying our tech should work is not equivalent to a PR video with T-Mobile, with famous astronauts showing this works. And like Verizon, they're using Buzz Aldrin for their satellite connectivity commercials. Europeans using one of their most famous astronauts. Like, people are really noticing now that this satellite space direct to phone is taking off, and it's just strange to me. With Elon Musk's marketing tactic and owning Twitter or X, you'd think that you would see proof of it working amazingly and ads, but like I literally have not seen it work. And that brings me to the next point. I posted this video. Shout out Space Mob. You guys helped this reach a lot of people here. And it just shows. We're going to show it here. We're going to include it. So the first video here, it's pretty funny. Someone trying to connect to Starlink. It's like the first test. Someone with the beta trying to send a text, and they literally just can't. It loses service. It flashes in and out, and it just, like, as you see here, the tech just doesn't work. But after that video, I'm going to show a little clip of AST doing the first video call, which is just amazing to see, honestly, because compared to like a video coming out of a service barely working, then having this out there, I think is important, because then people will catch on to the tech. So I only included like a minute of each, but enjoy here.
Text myself, so it does show RCS connected, which is kind of nice. So let's see. So it says it failed to send. Let's try it again. Not delivered. Let's see if we can send it as SMS instead here. It seems like that worked. All right, well, in a second, we'll go grab the other phone. It's in the car right now. See if it got that SMS message, but we're going to try and send Austin here a test through iMessage. See how it works. Of course, they said it's going to take longer to send these messages due to the distance. You can see it's working on it right there. So let's see how long it takes to go through. Of course, this is real time. I'm not going to cut this, so you can see what the actual experience is like using this as our screen gets covered with rain. Nope, just changed to green, so it looks like, oh, of course, we lost the connection. See, that means we dropped it back down to the Apple's.
Hello Margarita, it's Rowan calling from a remote mountain region in Wales, in an area that's never before had mobile coverage.
Hello Rowan, it's great to see you today. You did it. We are making history. Big congratulations to you and your team.
Yeah, thank you Margarita. The weather's cleared up a bit now, but there's been a lot of rain and wind and floods today.
You are really making us do a big step forward. Our objective is to connect everyone, wherever they are. And you are making this happen. Thank you again.
So yeah, as you can see there, it's just pretty insane, the kind of difference in tech. I know it's still early for both, but it's a good sign that kind of shows we're ahead. And honestly, this never really had to be Starlink versus ASTS, and I've, like, up until this year, I never really even thought of that. I knew they wanted to, like, do it with the, like, dishes you carry around. It's very overpriced. It's not even affordable, really, for just an average person with the $500 dish. And then you see they're bringing it to direct-to-phone, so it's like, okay, it's texting, and then they're claiming they're going to be able to do all this like high-speed stuff like we are, and it's just more snake oil salesman stuff. And the way like the media kind of did this, they just kind of like pinned us against Starlink. When like AST first started taking off, there was Starlink's smaller competitor, Starlink's little brother, Starlink's competitor, like CNBC and all these stations, they just started calling us Starlink's little brother, Starlink's, and like I'm okay with it to an extent because like as we've seen Tesla, the stock has grown on such a big scale now. So us being compared to like Elon Musk's next big company that's already worth 200 billion or more, it is uplifting. At the same time, it creates competition that we kind of didn't create ourselves, but I'm okay with it. Pin us up against a company on that size, new investors will see the stock as an insane value at below 10 billion market cap. It just shows you that we are still in the beginning stages. Our tech is amazing, and bam, we're good to go. So, and also with like the Starlink stuff, with like the president, Trump, and Elon Musk being buddy, and Trump trying to start stuff with Canada, Elon kind of has his hands tied behind his back now because he owns these companies, and now there's like the board of Ontario canceling a $200 million Starlink deal. So it just kind of shows you that like Elon's political plays might actually hurt Starlink and open more opportunities for us. I'm not saying this is guaranteed, but companies, like when he bought Twitter, people were boycotting ads because they didn't want to give him money. So will we see the same thing with Starlink, where companies want to work with a high-speed satellite connector and they don't want to go with Starlink because of political reasons or just any other reasons? And with our tech being the higher level, having that competition when they don't want to choose Elon or his company kind of puts us there for us to fall on. So these contracts that are hundreds of millions of dollars being canceled, like you never know where they're going to end up because people want satellite internet. It's very crucial. So I think moving forward, I think it's just, and I like that Abel and team don't really even focus on Starlink. Like we've seen Starlink publish to the FCC complaining about us. And like it's all honestly kind of like a bash campaign, low key, that you can kind of tell. And Abel, who has superior tech, doesn't have to make modifications to phone. He doesn't come directly at the company, but they do it smart. The PR team does it smart, where they say, "Oh, we were able to connect our phone to the satellite with no modifications," because the article came out. They're working with Apple, so they can do modifications and updates to make it fit. But then us tweeting, we were able to do this with no modifications, no nothing. It just is a little jab, but it's not really like on the level we see them doing. And it honestly doesn't need to be competition because there is room for both. But all I'm saying is if our tech is superior, then I don't know what else there is to do. So with all this, then after that, after like the whole Starlink drama, we're like, okay, what's going on? We got the testing done, bam, and then we got FCC approval for Verizon and AT&T, which is just going to be massive. The key to testing, the key to getting these bluebirds that we just sent up dialed in and ready. And without the FCC approval, we'd be slowed down. And now, as we saw, like Vodafone got approved, and then they're doing a high-speed call within a few weeks. AT&T Verizon just got approved. When do we expect to see these two giant U.S. cellular companies making content using us from space? And I think it's sooner than a lot of us think. Vodafone ran that ad a lot. There's a lot of PR. There's a lot of Europe, especially in the European news. There's a lot talking about this accomplishment. And the thing I did think was a little strange about the FCC's approval and such is like this U.S. based company that made these satellites it got approved in Europe and tested in Europe first. So while they're over there bragging first video call, first this, it's like if the FCC, I think it's good press for just America as a whole if they approved AT&T and Verizon first, and we got those videos first. But from a stock standpoint, I think we're in a good spot because you see it work in Europe and it hype up a little. And now once AT&T and Verizon drop this content with it working, it's just verified everywhere. And I can't wait for this testing to come through. It's going to be a great day once we do see these big carriers working with this, with these new satellites. It's going to be amazing. And I think with all this, with the FCC approval, these new funds, and the testing, I think the stock price will speak for itself on accomplishments. It is weird to look back and say, oh, we were at these prices in July and August before all this happened. But like thinking back, it was probably just like hype for the launch or something. But now like we've kept our heads down and executed as like amazingly. And now our accomplishments will speak for themselves. It might not be overnight. It might not even be in a few months. But the market will catch up and understand, especially once new testing comes out and more satellites get launched. And finally, yesterday, actually, we got some new stock coverage by Cantor Fitzgerald with a $30 price target and overweight rating, which is overweight rating. I love those because it means, load up. Your portfolio should be overweight and ASTS. If that's my portfolio is very, very overweight because that's literally all I have. So with that, caused another spike, and it's just good to see these analysts talk about it. They even shouted out SpaceMob on it and said these investors do the due diligence and understand this stock and this tech. So them shouting us out and just giving a price target that's higher and finally initiating coverage, I think more banks will step in and do this because like it's hard for a lot of these big banks like Bank of America, JP Morgan and such. Like it's hard for them to do ratings on like pre-revenue companies. I think it's just out of their risk tolerance, which is completely understandable. But as we get closer to revenue and once it starts generating, the coverage will be made. And I think some of the price targets based on revenue for 2030 and beyond are going to be high and really drive this thing up. So with all that, we've really seen some positive stock movement, which I do enjoy because like we saw a few days where the market was beaten down because of interest rates or trade drama, and you saw ASTS fly up. So like it's a really good indicator of momentum happening when the stock can stay up 10% a day when the market's red and Tesla's down 5%. And like as we see, Tesla has dropped off like $100 like in a month, and it's just pretty insane that in that same time like other stocks, high valued tech stocks are falling off, we are the ones growing. And like stocks like Palantir, they don't have that much revenue. It's under 100 million, and I was reading somewhere without like contracts it's like 22 million, and they're worth 200 billion something dollars. So it just shows you that like with the hype of the future and with a company that is poised to grow very much in the future, it can get established as a high market cap early on because people just want to have the stock and hold it. So I think with more coverage coming and the positive momentum that we're seeing here in the market, tied with like all this amazing press coming out recently, there's no bear case anymore. There's no bear case anymore, silly bears. They can keep trying though. If they short, it just helps it go up in the long run. But I think we're poised for greatness right now. And it's funny, like as I'm recording this, I'm like, because it's like pre-market, I'm like, I wonder if any news came out. It's a Friday. Abel likes to tweet on Fridays. I wish he did more because he used to like every Friday. But the team's busy. The team's executing with their heads down, working with these partners, have the funds now, getting these launches set up, And before you know it, like, time's going pretty fast, especially with holding the stock. Before we know it, we're going to have so many satellites up there and be making coverage while all these MNOs are making content, bragging about their accomplishments, while Starlink sits there and continues to try to bash us. So I think moving forward, we're in a good spot, Space Mob. And I do appreciate you all tuning in, as always. Really appreciate this little community that we've grown here. Gonna keep these up, and we'll see you later, Space Soldiers.